Good morning, FS2 A and B. Today we have a new story related to our topic. You know what it is? It's Cinderella. I think most of you know a lot about that story. Let's see what it's all about. Cinderella. Okay, I'll ask you the questions that I always ask you. Who writes the words in the book? I can hear you, the author. Very good. And who draws the pictures? The illustrator. By now you know that, don't you? Come on, let's start our story. Once upon a time, there was an unhappy little girl. And her name was Cinderella. She was always dusty and dirty. Do you know why? Because she used to do all the housework, and she used to even feed the animals outside as well. She was tired. She used to work the whole day, from the time she wakes up till the time she goes to bed. All day she had to cook and clean and do everything for her stepmother and her stepsisters. She isn't her real mother. She's her stepmother. At night she used to go to bed very tired and very sad. She slept on the floor. She didn't have a beautiful bed like we do. She used to sleep on the floor with her cover next to the fireplace so she doesn't get cold. Her stepsisters were very bossy. They weren't kind at all to her. They used to shout at her all day and tell her what to do in a very bossy way. Her stepmother as well was really cruel. She used to make her do all the hard work with no help whatsoever. But Cinderella always used to like to go for a walk. She used to go to pick berries, and she loved walking in the woods, looking at the beautiful flowers and listening to the birds singing all around. Although all of them were cruel to Cinderella, she was very nice and kind and loving. She was a really lovely girl. One day, an invitation arrived, a letter inviting Cinderella and her stepmother to go to a ball. A ball is like a big, lovely party. But Cinderella's stepmother said, "No, Cinderella won't be going. She's just a servant. She won't be going to the big beautiful party. We don't need her there." Cinderella was so sad. Cinderella was kind enough to make both her stepsisters dresses to go to the ball. She made them beautiful dresses with frills. Although she was very sad that she really wanted to go and put on a beautiful dress as well and go to the ball. She put on makeup for them and she made them really pretty. She even put curls in their hair. But they never said thank you or were grateful for what she was doing. They were still bossy, shouting and being really cruel. Cinderella watched them step into the carriage and drive away. She stood sadly at the door of their house. Then Cinderella went inside and sat next to the fireplace. She started to cry, saying, "Oh, how I wish that I could have gone with them to the ball. Why can't I be like them? Why can't I wear a beautiful dress and go to the ball and have fun?" And she started to cry. "What is that?" asked a gentle voice. "What's the matter?" Cinderella suddenly stopped crying and looked around her. "Who's talking? There's nobody here at home but me." A fairy stood in front of her. With her wand, she was so beautiful. "I'm your fairy godmother," the lady said. "Why are you crying?" "I don't want you to cry. I can help you." "I wanted to go to the ball. I really wanted to go," sobbed Cinderella. "And so you will go, darling," said the fairy. "But first you'll need a pumpkin." Cinderella said, "A pumpkin?" "Yes, darling, a pumpkin." Cinderella ran quickly into the garden and picked up the biggest pumpkin she could find and gave it to the fairy godmother. "Stand back," said the fairy. She tapped the pumpkin 1, 2, 3 with her wand, and suddenly sparkles and stars started flying all over, and the pumpkin rose up from the ground, turning bang, and it turned into a beautiful coach. Cinderella was surprised and astonished. "Oh, fairy godmother, it's such a beautiful coach. Am I going to go? But how? I have a torn dress on." "One thing at a time, darling," said the fairy godmother. "Now we need a mouse trap." 6 mice ran out and the fairy godmother got them. She wove her wand, and what happened? They turned into beautiful white horses, ready to pull the coach. "What else do we need?" "We need a coachman," said the fairy. "What shall I get you to make that then?" said Cinderella. "Hang on, darling," fairy godmother said. The rat ran into the trap. "Look, here, and we have a rat. We can change him into a coachman. For my next spell, I need 6 lizards." "Here," called Cinderella, "behind the water. We can find the lizards." With a wave of the wand, there were footmen dressed in glittering green, ready for Cinderella. Poor Cinderella looked down at her tattered clothes, at her torn dress. The fairy raised her wand and said for the last time. Cinderella's rags vanished. She wore a golden ball gown, laced with flowers. It was such a beautiful dress. "Oh, thank you, fairy godmother. Thank you so much for all what you did for me. Really, I'm so grateful." On her feet were glass slippers, the prettiest ever. The fairy godmother said, "Just remember, you must leave before the clock strikes midnight." Midnight means 12 o'clock at night. We all of us can tell the time now, right? And we know when it's 12 o'clock. Because when 12 o'clock strikes, the magic will end and fade away. Cinderella got into her beautiful coach and off she went. She got to the ball. She was so happy. She said to herself, "Oh, I feel that it's just a dream. I can't believe that this is true, that I have such a beautiful coach and I'm going to the ball in such a beautiful dress." She walked into the palace and gazed around in wonder. As Cinderella walked into the ballroom, she could hear everybody whisper around her, "Who's that beautiful girl in that beautiful dress?" The prince saw Cinderella. He rushed up to her and said, "Hello, welcome to my ball. "May I have this dance?" Cinderella curtsied and she said, "Yes, of course, I'd love to dance with you." Cinderella started dancing with the prince all around the ballroom. Cinderella's stepsisters watched her dance with the prince. They didn't realize that it was Cinderella. They said, "Who is that beautiful princess? Who could that be?" And they were very, very jealous and angry. One of them said, "I bet the prince would rather dance with me than with her. She's very jealous and horrid." Cinderella and the prince danced all night until it struck midnight. 12 o'clock. "Oh, I must go," said Cinderella, and she ran quickly, dashing down the palace steps. While she was running, her dress turned back to the old dress she had, the torn one, and the beautiful dress just disappeared away. Her carriage turned back into a pumpkin. Her coachman went into a rat again. Cinderella ran home in her bare feet, and she had her shoe in her hand, the beautiful sparkling shoe. She lost one on the steps. The prince hurried after her. "Wait, wait! Even you never told me what your name is." All that was left was a slipper, a sparkly slipper on the steps belonging to Cinderella. 2 days later, the prince and the king's men were walking all around town, asking who the shoe belonged to. And the prince said, "Whoever the shoe belonged to, I'm going to marry." The prince went from house to house. Every girl wanted to try on the shoe and wished that it'll fit them. At last they came to Cinderella's house. Let's see what happened. Her stepsisters tried on the shoes, and they tried so hard to squeeze their feet into them. But it didn't fit them, because it didn't belong to them. Cinderella came quickly into the room. "May I try it on, please?" she asked. It fit her perfectly. As soon as she put her foot down into the shoe, her foot just slipped in. Cinderella said, "Yes, it's mine." She pulled out the other pair from her pocket. Everybody was astonished. As she put it on, the room lit up with stars. Her rags turned back into the ball gown that she had. At last, cried the prince, "I found you! I found you, beautiful princess! Will you marry me, please?" "Yes," replied Cinderella. Everyone was invited to Cinderella's wedding, even her stepsisters. Cinderella had a kind heart, and she forgave everyone. Her family, her stepsisters, everybody who ever did wrong to her. And she lived happily ever after with her prince. The end.